Dean, and I will be your MC for today. I would like to welcome you to the Carbondale United Second Virtual Youth Summit. Our speakers today are all young people who are working to make a difference in the world today. This summit is being recorded and broadcasted live on Facebook and Channel 16. I'd like you to thank our speakers and our many community partners. Audience members are welcome to interact with our panelists using the chat and Q&A functions. There's also a phone number you can text your questions to. That number is 1-872-356-2939. Kids and teens, be sure to stick around to the end and take our exit survey so you'll be eligible to win prizes. Thanks for being here. We have asked our participants to submit TikTok videos about stopping violence. So we'll start with the first of the TikTok videos that was submitted.
You got London on the track.
Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter.
That was a lovely video. Our first speaker today is Mr. Travis Washington. Travis is a two-time graduate of SIU, having received his bachelor's degree in university studies with a minor in Africana studies and speech communications in 2017, and a master's in education administration in 2019. He's also the creator of the Hands Up Act. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Travis Washington.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Okay, good. Well, my name is Travis Washington. I'm the creator of this Hands Up Act. It's a petition where if a police officer shoots somebody unarmed, it's a mandatory 15-year prison sentence. I'm at 2.6 million signatures for my petition. I had 6 governors call me, and I did a judiciary committing phone call with 1 U.S. senator's staff. I just spoke in Chicago in front of a crowd of 5,000 people. Right now, my goal is to push for this legislation to become the federal law of the land. When we think about all these shootings and all these forms of police brutality, this is anger built up from Trayvon Martin to Michael Brown to Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, all the way to George Floyd. During my journey of pushing my petition, the Hands Up Act, the legislation, I was blessed enough to meet the mother of Michael Brown and Tamir Rice, where they are huge proponents of the petition. My biggest goal is to get a committee hearing with the House of Representatives and the United Nations Human Rights Council, so all 193 countries can see the brutality that's taking place in America. I want to get a committee hearing with the House of Representatives so they can hear what I'm trying to do and hear the suffering and the pain that and the trauma people have been going through. I'm so blessed to be given the opportunity to speak to you guys today. If you have any questions, please send them through. That's my summary. Thank you.
Well, we know that you're a busy young man. Thank you for all the work that you've done. Very impressive. Looks like you're on your way to another engagement, possibly. We do not have any questions at this time, but thank you very much for sharing this information with us today.
Thank you.
Yolanda?
All right, well, we will move right ahead to our second panelist. Her name is Yamara Winfield. Yamara Winfield is from Grand Chain, Illinois. She is an 18-year-old high school graduate, writer, and activist. Yamara has recited her works at many history-making protests in Southern Illinois. So now I give you Yamara Winfield.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be reading my poem for you all today. It's a poem I wrote shortly after an incident in my class with one of my classmates, and excuse my cat. It's called P.S. I started out crying. Nothing in this world but pain, tears resembling rain, children dying, mothers trying to raise their children right. No end to violence in sight. Fathers leaving, causing issues. Babies crying, Dad, I miss you. Pain in their heart, causing love to stop. Giving hate a reason to start. Making crime an art. Blood as paint in our country's streets as a canvas. Lives being lost, but at what cost? Gone, but never forgotten. A phrase used too often. The names are adding up. Emmett Till, Jamar Clark, Walter Scott, Tamar Rice, Stephen Clark, Sandra Bland, Belinda Castile, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd. Even that's not even half the injustices we've witnessed. Too many graves being made, too many souls are being laid to rest. No life should be valued less. Black Lives Matter, this movement was started because men weren't coming home because they left the house wearing the wrong color. Black Lives Matter, this movement was started because, excuse me, I just repeated myself. The color of our skin shouldn't matter. Oppression is real, it's present. We fight it every day, making little progress. Why should we sit watching the world digress? We're moving backwards, it seems, comments crossing lines, the use of the N-word so loosely. Build that wall at the top of your lungs should only raise flags. Supporting a president that was supported by the KKK should only raise flags. When we realize that the past should be a guide for us by telling us what not to do. P.S. When we realize we bleed the same and are all God's children. I wrote this because I felt like I wasn't doing enough in a situation where people were losing their lives because of the hate that we express to our children for no reason. So I wrote this to get my voice heard, that the hate shouldn't be allowed anymore. So just teach each other how to love. And that's all I have for you today.
Beautiful, just wonderful. We do have one comment and question from a viewer. This is a really good poem. Are you thinking about publishing it? Umara?
Muted it.
Okay.
I have thought about publishing. I have, but I've been working on some newer poems, and I'm hoping that with time I'll be able to publish them all and make it kind of a book. So
that's great. We also have another comment that says, great, thank you for your work. I have a question. Have you thought about starting any special zines or any clubs or anything at your school for?
Me and my brother actually were able to get an artist in residence with Samuel Hawkins. He's a well-known artist out of the Paducah area. And we were able to do workshops with him about 2 years ago now. And he and his friend Jacob Gibson are actually ones who kind of set me up to being a kind of like activist writer. Jacob Gibson has a poem called Dear Marshall that really stuck with me and kind of influenced PS. So we worked with him and we had a program with that, but I am really looking forward to being able to work with them again soon and being able to start something again.
Great. Well, we had one additional question that asked any new events in the works, and I think that you answered that for us just now. Anything else you care to share with our viewers?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yolanda?
Our next speaker is Malia Mays. Many of you know our next speaker, as she is a recent graduate of the Carbondale Community High School. She plans on furthering her education at Spelman College in the fall. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Malia Mays.
Hello. All right, I'm here to talk about ways to combat violence in the youth. So let's just take a walk through our day. What do? We wake up, we check our phone, then we turn on the TV, and then we will go to the store, look at a magazine or newspaper. All of these things are media, which is where we get most of our information in this day and age. Well, how much violence did you see? Did you even recognize that you saw any violence? Well, according to Joshua Metroyite, accurately by the age of 18, the average US adolescent has watched about 18,000 people being strangled, smothered, stabbed, shot, poisoned, blown up, drowned, run over, beaten to death, or otherwise ingeniously done in. And another 160,000 rapes, armed robberies, and assaults. Now, to top that off, by the time our youth of today are in their 70s, they will have watched 7 to 10 years of television in their lifetime. Well, as we can see, as I just previously said, media is our #1 source of information, and the amount of violence that we see in the media influences the youth of today. So what they don't teach in the media is ways to combat the violence, such as ways to properly communicate and to control our emotions to prevent acts of violence. For example, one day I was in school and I was part of a group project, and we were made to present a poster, and the teacher did not inform us that we had a missing point. We forgot to put something in the poster until we got to the front of the room and began presenting. Well, I was a bit upset about that because the poster was a huge part of our grade, and he neglected to tell us this information until we were presenting. So I had a conversation with him, and we exchanged words calmly, peacefully, even though I was upset, and we solved the problem. Now, I have observed many other minor inconveniences, such as a simple misinformation, like the teacher doesn't tell you everything. So, and those instances have gone very different from the one I experienced. However, I am blessed to have parents that understand that communication and being able to control your emotions is invaluable. It helps to prevent minor inconveniences into blowing up into unnecessary violence. And now this problem, but in communication and controlling of your emotions, is not just in the youth. It is also in adults as well. It is in people of authority. And also another problem in, particularly in Carbondale, there is not anywhere to socialize other than school. So school is our main, the youth's main point of socialization. Hanging out with their friends. There is not like anywhere to go and just be, you know. And well, to begin with the school's history, the first school was started in 1647 in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, and then the first law that mandated that all children had to go to public school was mandated in 52, I'm sorry. So during this point, all melanated beings, by melanated beings, I mean African Americans, were still an enslaved people at this point, which means, and as we all know, during slavery, African Americans were not considered to be human. So therefore, it is in my opinion that school, the things that they teach in school is not in melanated beings' self-interests. Now, in order for the violence to, for there not to be any violence or there even to be like a solution to that, there needs to be a place in where African Americans are educated about themselves, about who their ancestors were, about, and not just begin African American history at slavery, because we were more than just enslaved people. For example, we are taught about the founders of America, but we are not taught about the beginning of civilization in which African American people were, our ancestors were the beginning of civilization. And that civilization is, was built on nonviolent principles. So if there is a place where we are educated about our ancestors and their nonviolent principles, that will give an example of how to build a new system based on nonviolence. As I said before, there is not anywhere to socialize other than school in Carbondale, and I know it's that way in many other small towns as well. So my proposal is to have a place where the youth can express themselves, whether that is in dance, art, any other ways of expression. And also it can just be a place to hang out. Now, the difference in what a lot of places around here, the difference would be in that place would be that we would bring in like professors and musicians and mechanics to teach the youth that ways to be successful, that there is other ways to be successful than illegal activities. And in order to build something like that, we would need the youth's input, which means they would be essential in building something of this caliber. And a place like this is essential to the youth in general. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Malia. A wonderful insight and some really startling statistics about violence. We do have a few questions. Let me see. One of our first questions is, it's horrible what's going on in the world. What do you think about all of this that's happening?
Well, it is definitely horrible. But this has been going on for a long time now. And I think now is the time for people to start recognizing that it's not just their time to sit around and look and be like, oh, it is horrible, and just say that it's horrible. It's time to start organizing. It's time to start organizing. It's time to start marching. It's time to start being active in our community. Yeah.
Great, and that you kind of answered part of this next question. Do you have any advice to young people coping with community violence? You had mentioned getting organized. Do you have any other suggestions and any tips on self-care?
Well, I know from experience in my way of self-care is I have talks with my family about how they are feeling about what's going on right now and how can we change? Like what does it take for change? What can we do as being in a small town and not being like, you know, in a big city where all the protests are happening? Like what can we do right now?
Wonderful. And we have another great question here. Do you think if there were more youth activities for the youth to participate in, that there would be less violence?
I do. And I think if there was a place for the youth to go, as I said before, there would be less violence because there would be more focus on being able to express yourself and just being able to, there's a place where you can go and hang out and be safe and be educated still, but you know. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your insight. Those are all the questions we have right now for you. But we do have one question actually that came up for Travis. If we could, Travis, if you're still available, we have.
Yes.
How would folks wanting to sign up for your Hands Up Act petition be able to do so?
Oh, you can go to Google and type in Hands Up Act, and it'll pop up right away. And if you wanted more information, you can type in Hands Up Act on YouTube, and I did a TEDx talk on it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you know what, Malia, looks like I missed a couple of questions in the Q&A. Let's see, one says, it sounds like you think Carbondale youth need a youth or teen center. Do you know if any organization in our community is trying to start a teen center? Are you aware of anything going on?
I am not aware of anything going on. However, I am willing to be a part of, if something is going on, I'm willing to be the one to start this youth center. Yeah.
Wonderful. And what can we do to make a change?
Well, what can we do to make a change? Well, I, for one, have previously organized a vigil, and that had a big impact on the community here. In my opinion, just get involved with all of the marches, all of the groups, because there are many groups that are starting up right now. Just get involved.
Wonderful. And I know that you and your family had put together a wonderful vigil, and I was in attendance, and that was fantastic. Let's see here. Thank you. We have another question, or actually maybe it's just a comment. It says here, Malia, stay strong and believe in yourself. Be the safe haven your friends need. Create your own place to be at peace. So, wonderful. Well, thank you again, Malia.
Thank you.
Miss Yolanda.
Our next speaker is Jayla Ware. Jayla is a 16-year-old honor student at Carbondale Community High School. She is currently a scholar at SMASH Academy in Chicago, Illinois, which is a STEM program for minority youth. She is interested in studying marine biology throughout her journey in higher education. Take it away, Miss Jayla Ware.
Hi everyone, I'm Jayla Ware, and today I will be just giving an informative speech about gun violence and how it affects a community, how the media coverage can affect gun violence and crime, and opinions around the term Black on Black violence. Gun violence is a vicious cycle that exists in many communities. It is the leading cause of poverty in underserved communities. Statistics by Everytown by Gun Violence show that over 100 Americans are killed with guns every day. That is an average of 37,603 intentional deaths per year. Black Americans are 10 times more likely to die by gun violence or homicide than white Americans. When violence is the center place for communities, it affects all members, young and old, big and small. It is like a domino effect that branches out to various members in that community. Imagine you are a young child in the 3rd grade. Shots were fired in your neighborhood, so you had to sleep in the cold bathtub all night to avoid stray bullets. The next day, you must go to school, but you're tired. You fear going to school and have developed post-traumatic stress disorder. You already struggle at school because you're behind in reading, but you cannot walk to the library because your mother is scared for your safety. She is under so much stress that the doctors say your unborn sister is underweight. Home values and ownership rates plunge in your community. Your friends start to move to different areas. Little do you know, your community is dying. Gun violence affects the very core and aspects of how people live and thrive. There is so much to learn and details behind the term Black on Black violence, homicide victim shaming, and the effects of gun violence on children and communities. According to an article published by the National Review in 2018, the killer of a Black victim was also Black 88% of the time. When it comes to media coverage of homicides, research has shown how racial minorities are exaggerated as criminals or perpetrators. The media's bias creates a level of hostility towards a certain group over the other. Certain attitudes are construed in the media that don't actually align with the severity of the case, the crime, or the victim. Aggressive coverage of homicides in the Black community create inaccurate stereotypes of Black victims' lives before death. We must remember that a considerable number of Black homicide victims were not involved in any criminal activity prior to death. Gun violence affects innocent victims, including bystanders who were not targeted, but lost their lives for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The term Black on Black crime is an emotional-driven term that can be abused if used by the wrong people, like politicians or political commentators. The term is broad and general and can concern individuals who are not involved in any community violence. Stated in the book Bleeding Out by Thomas A.V.T., the expression Black on Black carries an implicit assumption that urban violence is the result of chronic lawless behavior enabled by community tolerance for criminality. Within the Black community, there are several factors that tie into the approval or disapproval of violence. Examples might include lack of trust in the police or flat-out non-cooperation with authorities in fear of Black criminals. Truth is, there's white-on-white crime, Asian-on-Asian crime, Hispanic-on-Hispanic crime, because statistics proves that most individuals that perpetrate gun violence on their own ethnic group. In 2018, 27.8% of homicide victims were killed by somebody they knew other than a family member, which means an acquaintance, neighbor, friend, or significant other. 12.8% were killed by family members, and 9.9% were killed by strangers. The relationship between murder victims and offenders were unknown in 49.5% of murder cases. According to a study done by the Child Welfare League of America, participants identified numerous skills that must be taught directly to children and youth affected by violence to reduce the impact of traumatic stress, including conflict resolution skills, that demonstrate simple problem-solving techniques that are nonviolent and or force assertive. In addition to developing communication skills, children and youth need to be taught to identify and regulate their emotions. Once they better understand their emotions and how they affect their behavior, they can learn how to appropriately respond to their feelings in a way that are not harmful to others or themselves. Males of an average 15 to 25 years old are most likely to commit gun violence if experience a substantial amount of traumatic history. But there is no evidence that has proven harsh discipline as an adolescent can account for racial differences and socioeconomic implements considering a crime. Unfortunately, every American will know a victim of gun violence at least once in their lifetime. My own cousin was only 27 years old when he was fatally shot in his own driveway. An innocent man, a hard worker, a loving boyfriend, and a family member. He was no criminal by any means, yet his case is still unsolved over a year later. Many other African American families will also face the grief of not receiving justice for the claimed life of a loved one. According to data sourced from the Chicago Police Department by WEBZ Radio, from January 1st, 2018 to July 31st, 2019, the Chicago Police Department solved only 22% of murders with Black victims. That is only 148 murders solved out of 687. Most people would assume if a young Black man was shot on the south side of Chicago, he was a criminal, a gangster, or a drug dealer. This stigma around homicides in the African American community allows the actual victims to be overlooked. To people of other Black backgrounds, a shooting of a Black male in Chicago is just another funeral, balloon release, or GoFundMe page. It's just another criminal off the streets who must have died due to his terrible life in the streets. Gang, drug, and gun violence is ever so present in the reality of many communities. Its influence is penetrated through music, movies, news, and passed down through generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayla. You have done a wonderful job in going into depth about gun violence and how deeply it affects the lives of everyone in so many ways that people haven't even thought, I think, often about. We have a question here. Do you believe Black on Black crime exists? If so, is there a way that we can eliminate this term?
I think Black on Black crime does exist, especially looking at statistics and personal opinions, but I think the term is just a little more abused than any other racial group and their own crime against others. So I think in the media, that term is just really stretched out and overused. So I think over time, maybe there'll be a different way to present the actual crime against news coverage.
And that kind of goes along with a comment that was made by a viewer that said, or why does the media use the term Black on Black crime when, and we never hear about the white on white crime, even though 85% of whites are killed by whites. So you kind of answered that a little bit with the media. Also, one of our viewers says that there's been a push to address some post-traumatic stress of persons leaving the military. Do we need to address the post-traumatic stress of persons living in a gun violent area?
Yes, I really think that's important. And I also think that has to do with the media and what people's definition or what they associate with post-traumatic stress disorder. At first, when I heard that word, I always thought about people who fought in combat or the military, but I think that it affects a lot of younger people in the community that people would even think about. No one would think about a little kid whose brother was shot or saw somebody who was shot. So I think that people really need to acknowledge, and we just need to learn more about how it affects a lot of people in the community, just besides military people and stuff like that.
Great. Why are there so many unsolved African American cases?
I've been doing my research about that, but as far as I'm concerned, it really has to do with, from what I've researched, it has to do with fear of the police and fear of Black criminals, because I read an article about the no snitch code. So it enables a lot of people to just stay silent and won't come forth to testify against someone who committed a homicide just because of fear of that person, fear of snitching on the street code, or just fear with being around the police in general.
And one last question. How can we help others who have been through crimes such as what you've explained?
I think that we just really need to acknowledge those people who've been through, like who's facing the trauma after gun violence or anything of that sort. I know it was helpful for me when I was going through it, when my friends and family were able to talk to me and just do what they really can to help me understand how things work in certain communities, and just to comfort me and let me know that things will be okay.
Wonderful. Well, you have obviously, done so much research on this topic. You were so well informed. Thank you for sharing all of this information with us today.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Travis.
Jayla, do you think some of these shootings are done by people from outside the neighborhood coming in?
I think that's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not completely sure, but I think that is a possibility for other people in surrounding areas to target certain people within a different community.
Okay, that's why, I'm sorry to cut you off, but sometimes that's why I think it's done by people, because we know that white supremacists still exist. Sometimes I believe it's done by people way outside the neighborhood coming in, shooting people and leaving. That happened one time in Arkansas, where a police officer's son was going into these neighborhoods, shooting these people up, and the Black people that live in the neighborhood kept on complaining, and then when they finally captured the person, it turned out to be the police son. And this happened in the 40s. So sometimes I do believe that's done by people from outside the neighborhood, and I just wanted to see what your opinion was on that.
Thank you, Travis, for that question. Actually, Travis, while we have you, what are some first steps that young people can take to introduce policy change? Where can we even start?
Oh, you asked a perfect person. I done so many political internships. I worked in the state capitol. I write foreign policy papers for fun, and I work for the U.S. Senator. The best thing to do is to call your state rep, call your congressman, or call your senator, or even attorney general, and the majority of the time, they do respond back to you. You call them, and then you email them, and then you call them, and you email them again, and you keep up the pressure to make sure that they answer your question, because you have to be on your political party. I was president of College Democrats. Even though I'm a Democrat, doesn't mean I'm going to be lenient towards Democrats. You have to call your politician, you got to call your state leader and be on them and make sure that they're doing their job. That's the best way, call and email.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have a comment that, in Carbondale, that's often, what you had brought up earlier, that crime often comes from people who don't even live here, is a thought from one of our viewers. So thank you for making that great point. Fantastic. All right. Thank you both. Let's go ahead and shoot it back on over to Yolanda.
All right. Our next speaker is Kenneth Jarrell Hamilton. Kenneth Jarrell Hamilton is 19 years old from Mounds, Illinois. He is a multi-business owner, asset investor, and content creator. Okay, Mr. Hamilton, we see you.
How you doing? How you doing? Well, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I ain't writing nothing down. I ain't, got nothing prepped to really, look at or talk about anything like that. But when I was informed about this right here, I was pretty excited and pretty happy to talk about, police brutality and black on black crime and things of that nature. But I don't really look at police brutality from the perspective of, obviously, yes, police should definitely stop the harassment, the death, I think the word is unlawful murders and things of that nature. The police should definitely stop those things. But I'm a person that believes in accountability, and I believe in change, and I want change, but just not in the perspective that most people go out and do it. The marching, the rioting, whatever you may want to call it, that right there is only the surface of the problem. And while we attack the surface of the problem, we forget the most important thing that really brings change. And the foundation of it is just finances and owning your community. And, I kind of ran into this guy. We had a discussion about things of this nature. And I just started thinking, if, we want these things to stop and we want these things to be different for us as Blacks or African Americans or whatever people of color consider themselves. If you want things to be different, we must own where we come from, and we must have our own. So when, a police officer steps out of line, or when a certain, I don't know if I should use the term white or Caucasian, but when a certain demographic of people step out of line and disrespect us as a culture or disrespect us as a people, we should have the right and we should have the power to either take them out of the community or take our spending power and spend it with our own people. So a lot of people talk about police brutality and things of that nature, but they never really talk about the financial side of it. And, it's very hard to get justice, or it's very hard to get equality, and it's very hard to get these human rights that we should get if we don't own what's going on. So if a police officer, if I'm getting pulled over or whatever, and, I'm not causing any problems, and the police officer beats me up or whatever, and, I try to take it to court, and hopefully I live. But, you take it to court, you try to fight it or whatever, and, you get, denied, or it's not justice or whatever. It's not too much I can do, because there's not strong people in the communities behind me to enforce justice, to enforce whatever it may be. So I believe the fix and the solution for this is group economics with Black people, melanated people, African American people, and things of that nature. That's what I believe that the cure is, because I think a blessing of living in a small community is there's nothing there, and there's nothing that's been built yet, and the community hasn't been gentrified by wealthy people that comes in. They go to the poorest communities and they put the need-based businesses that's been there for years upon years upon years upon years. As far as, taxes, insurance businesses, you have things simple as the laundromat and things of that nature. In every community you go through, you normally will see tax offices. You will see the insurance places. You might see a U-Haul. You might see things that you need every day that's essential, things that we need, things that we have to spend money with people, whether you like them or not. Blacks don't own it. So in order for these things to change, we must really become owners instead of, I hate to use the term beggars, but we really must become owners instead of, begging or seeking out opportunity. Yes, as Black people, we should definitely, be rewarded for certain things. We should definitely be held at the same standard, or even at a higher standard than, most people as far as equality. We should definitely get, fair treatment. But I believe Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity or being insane is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So how can I go out and march? How can I go out and be for my people, but I go out and I spend my money with the other group of people, or I go out and I spend my money with people who have no intentions on taking the money and reinvesting back into the community? Why would you do something like that? And to be 100% honest with you, that's the correct answer. Stop spending your money with people. But if you stop spending your money with people, where will you go? So that's what I mean by, you know, being owners and actually owning things besides the, no disrespect to nobody, but the hair salons and the barber shops and things of that nature. We need to own things that are need-based businesses, service-based businesses, and that give us give us that power that we need and that financial push that we need to keep forward. So when I approach police brutality, I don't look at it from the perspective of, you know, sending people to jail or doing things of that nature. Yes, definitely, the people who, you know, do these unlawful things should definitely be sent to prison. But I just look at it, you know, and say how we see what the problem is. How, as Blacks or African American people, can we shift the culture and can we shift the perspective on what's happening to us? So, and I really had thought of this morning on my way home, and I thought about it, and in our communities, unfortunately, and I grew up in a community like this, and I grew up in an environment to where we don't really involve ourselves with the police. As Black people, you don't talk to police. You don't snitch. You don't rat. You don't do none of these things. And I can say that for a very, very, very long time, and this is just very recent that my mindset kind of shifted. I can definitely say that we need to support people in law enforcement, but I'm not talking about supporting the current situation of law enforcement, but there needs to be some form of glorification in these communities when there are Black people, when they're in middle school or when they're in high school, and in the back of their mind, they want to be a police officer, but in the Black community, the police officer is not respected. The police officer is not looked at as a person of success. Like, being a police officer in most Black communities is not a way of success, or it's not the ideal image of a Black person. And I was like that for a very, very long time. But I believe in order for, you know, some of these crimes that the police are committing and some of these brutalities and these terrible things that they're doing, you can't take somebody outside the community that's never been around Blacks or African American people and try to police them, because we need to police ourselves. So I believe that the result would be different if I grew up in this community, I grew up in this city. I know what the mannerisms are of my people. I'm a police officer, so I don't have to automatically go to them with aggression. I don't have to go to them in fear. I don't have to go to them worrying what they may do to me or what they possibly could do, because I already know these people. So when you put a Black person in a Black community and you have the roster of, you know, Black deputies or whatever you may call it, when you have the roster of Black people in a Black community, the result is totally different. It's not necessarily a thing to where I was in fear for my life, so I shot him, or I was in fear that he was going to do anything, so I beat him up, or I was in fear for my livelihood and I held him on the ground and I had my knee in his neck while I was choking him, things of that nature. Those problems get eliminated once you have people in the community that was raised in the community, that grew up in the community, and now all they're doing is policing the community. So me personally at this moment, I'm not really pro-police or against police, but now that I'm older, I definitely say that the Black people or African American people, if they're wanting to be police officers and that's what they're wanting to do, that they should definitely I don't want to say be glorified, but they shouldn't be looked at negatively for trying to be the serving and protective people of the community. So when I look at police brutality and I look at things of this nature, I always try to look at it not from the perspective of how can we fight back, but how can we be honest? How can we buy the block? If you don't like how we treat them, we're gonna get you up out of it. If you don't, you're not following what because there literally are towns that have their own police system and they have their own system. And if we came together, group economics, we own the land up under it. We own most of the things that most of the properties, most of the businesses in the community. We not control what happens. We not have the power to police our own communities. We not have the power to say, no, we don't want this in here. You're going to have to leave. We have the power to do that. And it starts with us. It doesn't start with, you know, I know disrespecting nobody, but it doesn't start with telling the politicians, you know, here's what we should do. We should get this, we should get this, we should get that. It doesn't start like that. It starts with us. One day, one step at a time. It's not going to come overnight. And it's definitely not going to come, you know, like that. I believe this is a 400 plus year struggle with African Americans and Black people. So, but I do believe that my generation is the last generation that is going to have just, I guess if you want to use the word racism, or openly racism, white supremacy, and openly hatred, to where it's done and we can't do anything about it. I do believe this is going to be the last generation that experience these things. And, you know, I guess to wrap up what I believe, you know, I don't think that we should fight police brutality with, you know, signing petitions and trying to get the laws to think differently. I just think we should own our communities. And I think that we should, you know, shop with our own and build our own people up. And that kind of goes back to the topic earlier on Black crime. Black on Black crime, is it a real thing? Yes, but I don't think that Black on Black crime should be used to as a I think the word is rebuttal, or I'm gonna use the word response. I don't think it should be used as a response when a white person or a white police officer does some unjustly or unlawful things to a person. I don't think the response should be, well, if Black Lives Matter, why don't Black people march like this when Black people kill Black people? Because that's kind of like you saying, well, if Black people kill Black people, what's wrong with a police officer killing the Black people, killing Black people? So it's almost like you putting a Black life at a low, the worth of a Black life is not that much if, you know, Black people kill Black people. So why can't we kill Black people? I don't think Black on Black crime, that term should be used to fight against what is really, you know, going on. But, you know, with Black on Black crime, only thing I believe in, you know, I just think we should really get to know ourselves and know the history. Because I think a lady said earlier, you know, we're taught about the founder of America, but we're not taught about the origin and how civilization was created. And I believe the first, you know, human form of civilization began in Africa. So that's where, you know, the scientists, you know, researched, you know, found things of that nature. But, you know, it's in our blood, it's in our people to win. We are the losers. We're kings, we're queens. We don't need to beg nobody to come in and help us do things. We don't need people to come and give us anything. We're kings, we queens, we gods, we goddesses. So, you know, I think once Black people or African American people or people of color understand who they are and understand the origin of who they are, then, you know, the term Black on Black crime or the urge to go off and hurt your brother would eliminate it. Because I heard this guy say one time, he said, and it's kind of my final closes. I was just thinking one day, you know, I'm not a super religious person now, but I grew up in the church and stuff like that. And I believe it, and I guess in Genesis, I think it says God created man in his own image. So if God is God and God created man in his own image, that means there's a small piece of God in me. Not big G as a superior being, but little g. There's a God within me. So once we understand these things, you know, I think that the urge to kill the brother, which is just the other version of me, will go away. So, you know, I definitely think ownership, self-accountability, ownership, and you know, just knowing yourself will eliminate these problems. We don't beg for opportunities, we create them. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Jarrell, you know, for reminding us of the importance of community and, you know, all the ways that unifying and coming together with community can help. We do have some questions for you. One of our questions today talks about potentially having a national referendum to diversify police departments. no police departments should be compromised by only one group of people. Do you think that that would be something that would be helpful?
Oh, some big words.
So,
But from what?
so diversifying, having a, trying to have a national change, a policy basically saying that police departments should be more diversified, and not just compromised or comprised, I'm sorry, of basically.
Oh, yes.
Right.
I definitely believe there should be something to where, there is some diversification, and there are people who, there is and this is me being honest, if there is the Hispanic communities, the Black communities, and the white communities, there shouldn't just be white officers going into the Black community and trying to enforce law, just as there shouldn't be Black officers going into the white community trying to enforce the law or enforce them to do anything. So I definitely do believe that there should be some form of, there should be a great deal of diversification, only because, you relate to the people that you grew up with. You relate to people who look just like you. So if I can relate to you, I probably don't want to kill you. I don't want to say I don't want to kill you, but I don't feel the fear of who you are because I understand you. So I definitely think that there should be some form of the diversification. Definitely.
Do you think that we can really change the entire police system? And are there any other ideas that you might have on helping with that?
No, I don't think that we can change the police system as far as like the law, how they do things, how they interact with people. No, I don't believe that that is something that we as a people can change. But I do think that we as a people can change ourselves, because I tell people all the time, who is it easier? Who is it easier to change, that person or yourself? So no, I don't believe the system can be changed, but I do think that, as I said earlier, we can change ourselves, become owners, or take steps to having ownership, and we police our own communities. And that kind of goes back to what you just said, the question about diversification. We have people that are of color policing our communities. So the system of, police, no, I don't think that will ever change. But I do think that how we go about things as people, or as, citizens, or as African American and Black people, I think that can change, yes.
Okay. I have a question here also. Do you think that there is a long way to go to get justice for all African American people?
Do I think that there's a long way to go to get justice for all African American people?
Yes, sir.
I don't really, as far as, I do think there's a long way if we were looking at it from the perspective of a certain political party or a government giving us something. Mm-hmm. As the girl earlier was, I think her name was Jayla, that she was talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. I believe there is something called post-traumatic slave disorder. So I believe all African Americans that are descendants from slavery and had, ancestors that were slaves, and that's pretty much most of African Americans, if you go by the term of African American. Most of us, we are descendants from slaves. So the post-traumatic stress of passed down generation upon generation, or you may have a white, no disrespect to nobody, but you may have a white child saying, teaching your white kids, go take a picture with the police officer, buddy. Go take a picture, buddy, smile. But then you have the Black child, oh man, stay away from the police. Keep your head down. Don't dig in your pockets. Go away from it. And that's pretty much how most of Black people are raised. So, and that's not normal. That's post-traumatic. That's a post-traumatic stress disorder. You are worried about something. So as far as from looking from that perspective, we have a very long way to, really, if we're dependent upon the government, we have a long way to go to really get justice for Black people, whether it be in the form of reparations as far as money, whether it be in the form of reparations as far as education, or whether it be in the form of reparations as far as opportunity, if we're dependent upon the government. But I do feel as though justice for Black people, if we did something called group economics. We came together and did do for self, and we did for self. Then that long way can be cut into a very, very short time. Very, very short time. That just goes back to knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing the powers and capabilities that you possess, and not depending on nobody else but yourself. So from the justice standpoint, as a long way. If we depend upon the government, yes, we definitely have a long way. But if we depend upon ourselves and we build something for ourselves that can be cut, I think that the time that it would take can be cut in half.
How can we expand Black businesses? It's hard to buy and start a business when there's no education and drive in the community.
Right. How can we expand? All right. And I think that goes from, and again, no disrespect to nobody and their beliefs, but that goes back to the school systems and knowing who we are. Because in order to expand Black business, first you need to have a financial education before you have a general education, before you need to know about a Christopher Columbus or a Pocahontas or a why does the moon revolve around the sun. Before you use that education, or before you have to know slope formula, you need to have a financial education. So in the Black community, earlier when I was saying we need to be owners instead of beggars, what I was meaning by that is we are taught to be workers. We're taught to go to school, get good grades so we can get a good job. Or we're taught to go to school, get good grades so you can get into a good college so you can work for a great company. We are immediately taught from birth until when we step into public preschool that we need to go off and work for somebody else. Now, I don't down the working man because I'm a working man. My father was a working man. I don't down the working man. But what I'm saying is there needs to be a form of financial education before anything. Once you understand finances and you understand the transfer of money, the thought process of working hard for money or physically going to clock in every day for money won't make sense to you. So to expand Black businesses, first, again, we need to know our worth. We need to know ourselves. We need to know that our time is not worth $9.25 an hour. We need to know that our time is not worth $10 an hour. That goes with knowing yourself. But to expand the Black businesses, first you need to expand on your education. Earlier, how the young lady was talking about, again, founding America. And I think she said a little bit about the education in school. If we go to school and we see, no disrespect to nobody, but we go to school and we see all these white successful presidents and these white successful people, the only thing that we think of is, man, where am I in the picture? Or where do I come in? Because we're not taught successful Black people. But down the line, there are Black entrepreneurs, there are great Black workers, there are great Black activists that did things that brought in the finances, that brought in the ownership. So once we know ourselves and we study ourselves, then we can expand as Black businesses. And one thing that I'm probably going to say that's very controversial, but instead, no disrespect to my people, I love my people to death, but as Black people, instead of throwing the middle finger up at Donald Trump, and instead of saying forget Trump and Trump is this and Trump is that, Donald Trump is probably all those things, I don't know, but instead of looking at him as far as a president, study him. Donald Trump is one of the greatest businessmen to ever walk this planet. Donald Trump has given us the blueprint to be successful people. All you have to do is watch it. Donald Trump was one of the craziest people in the world, and he somehow became the president of the United States of America. How does that happen? How is he coming in and says, I'm not going to stay in the White House, or I'm not going to do certain things? He's given us a blueprint. People that we don't like, people that have oppressed us, have given us the blueprint to make something happen for ourselves. So we expand on Black businesses by first being self-educated instead of depending on these school systems to, teach us. And that goes back to how I was saying, being taking some accountability and knowing self.
All right, Jarrell, if you could briefly answer, we have kind of one more question. We have some comments, with concerns about models and examples for the youth, and just, knowing that racism still happens in our community. But the question is actually, do you think internships or mentorship programs in the junior high or high school directed toward youth would help heal some of the post-slavery traumatic disorder?
Yes, I think if just to answer briefly, very quickly, yes, if we can see success and we can see somebody else who's done it, and we can see somebody else who looks just like me, and they were able to do it, then definitely I can do it. So yes, mentorships and the internships, definitely. I don't know if it would cure the mental. I don't know if the post-traumatic stress will ever be towards whites or towards racism will ever be necessarily cured. But I can say, if we can see people that look just like us being successful, it'll give us all we need, or all the ammunition and the motivation and the drive that we need to go out and be successful for ourselves. So yes.
What do you think about the RSO officers in schools? Do you have a quick thought or comment on that?
What's RSO?
Resource Student Officer, I believe, is what it stands for. It's kind of a cop in school where they have at Carbondale High School, it's a police officer from the police department that is there to maintain the safety of the
I believe if it's from a safety perspective, yes, that's 100% fine. If it's simply from a making sure the children are safe, making sure everything it's a safe environment for the children. Yes, with everything that's going on with mass shootings and things of that nature, yes, there should be a police officer or someone that has the rightful law to carry should definitely be there to aid and assist. But if it's used to keep people in order, to keep students in order, and used as like a fear tactic, if you get out of line, you're going to jail, then no, I don't think that's right. But in general, yes, definitely, that should definitely be a RSCO or whatever it's called.
All right. Well, thank you. That's kind of a hot topic here in Carbondale these days, and throughout the U.S., I believe. Well, thank you so much for your time in answering all these questions. I think it's time for us to go back to Yolanda.
It is.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Our next speaker is Mr. Ryan Thomas. Ryan Thomas is a Carbondale native and Carbondale Community High School graduate. He returned to his alma mater in 2008 as a special education teacher. He taught and coached at CCHS for 9 years into moving into administration. Mr. Thomas was named principal at Carbondale Community High School in 2018. He lives in Carbondale with his wife, Vanessa, and 3 young daughters. Take it away, Mr. Ryan.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I just like to say, all the speakers and presenters have done a great job today, great perspectives, great insight, and just good overall messages for everybody out there listening. Definitely proud of our CCHS, Malia and Jayla, for their presentations. They did an awesome job representing Carbondale High School. So just a few things. I, typically talk to our students at the beginning of the year and then throughout the year about, what they're going to get out of high school. And I think that can spread through the community and things outside of the school building as well. So I typically tell students and often tell students like they're going to get out of high school what they put into high school. And if they're at high school from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock doing what they need to do and then they're out the door, then that's what they're going to get out of it. But if they truly invest in it, if they truly make those connections with people around them, peers, adults, then I think their high school experience is going to be that much more rich. And again, that definitely applies to our community and our causes in our community. So if you are passionate, and I know our presenters today are passionate about what they're doing, and our attendees, the fact that they're even attending says that they're passionate, then I think you're putting into something and you're going to get a lot more out of it just in life in general. And I think the next step of that is, and I often, relate this to our students as well, is if you are putting a lot into it and you're investing into a cause or a movement or just yourself, then you're going to become a better version of yourself. And I can speak as a 40-year-old person that I am every single day trying to be the best version of myself at 40 years old that I can possibly be. I'm not looking at to my left, and I'm not looking to my right, even though that is easy to do sometimes and compare myself to somebody else. And I know as a teenager, it's very, very easy to compare yourself to your peers. But if we stay focused and we're putting it all that we have into ourselves and trying to be the best version of ourselves at age 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, if we're doing those things, then that's all we can ask for. If we can be the best version of a 17-year-old self that we could possibly be, then we're winning in life and we're going to go a long way in life. And I think that leads to then another level of that. If you're striving and doing things to make yourself the best version of yourself at age 17, then you can begin to expand that to other people. And then you can really start becoming a difference maker to others. And you can be a role model to others, and you can help others, and you can give your perspective to others. So all our presenters are definitely, striving to be the best version of themselves wherever the stage of life they are in. And now they're being able to give back through what they've done today with their perspective and their messages. So anybody out there, listening, I think that is something that we strive to do at Carbondale High School. And it's something I try to impress on our students. It's something I try to impress on myself and our staff, just to be the best version of ourselves that we can. So then ultimately we can be of service to others and help other people. So again, I'm honored to be a part of this. I know this is kind of new, and I'm glad that we're having these discussions. And I think they're important discussions, and I think they're important perspectives and messages for as many people as possible to hear. So again, thank you for letting me be a part of it, and hopefully everybody gets something from the last hour or so. I know I have. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And I want to thank all our presenters today. Wonderful, beautiful, enlightened young people that are going to be wonderful for the future of all of us. I would also like to thank all our viewers and for the wonderful questions that came through. But before we move on to our TikTok video, we had discussed actually speaking upon a young man that is missing. And we are wanting to share the word if you had not heard on social media. This young man, Rakim, came down from Chicago on the train on the 23rd, and he has been missing. His parents are very worried about him. There's video of him actually exiting the train, walking south on South Illinois Avenue past SIU. So if anyone comes in contact with this young man or has any information, please contact the Carbondale Police Department and or the phone number here, Detective Aaron at 312-744-8266. His family is very concerned for his safety. So, Ms. Yolanda, back to you.
Well, I think all we have left is a TikTok video, and then Nancy will come and tell us about when our survey will come out so these guys can win some prizes. Woohoo!
Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Yeah, hey, every day can be a better day despite the challenge. All you gotta do is leave it better than you found it. It's gonna get difficult to stand, but hold your balance. I just say whatever, cause there is no way you're around it. Everyone falls down sometime, but you just gotta know it'll all be fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood.
Nancy, are you ready?
Okay. So they put me up. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm thanking you so much for coming out to our second virtual youth summit. Look for the next one coming up soon. We need you to fill out the survey that will be sent to the email address that you provided for registration. Once we receive that survey that you have to complete, then you'll be notified about the prizes that you may have won. The survey must be turned in by Friday, June 26, 2020, and we will get that out to you sometime this evening. It must be returned by 11:30 p.m. So if anybody has any questions, if not, that's where we're at. And again, I want to thank everybody who helped put this together, all the agencies, all the speakers, the library for the Zoom room, everything. Thank you.
Well, I believe that concludes our summit for today. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.